down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. Hey gang, how you doing tonight? Thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and my mission, as always, is to help photographers like you to develop a more solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. Before we get going, gang, I know we took a week off. Don't forget, please do me a solid. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. You can go ahead and you can click that share button down here underneath the video, or I'll paste the link in the chat window. You can share the link, tog.chat/live. Don't forget all those Facebook photography groups that you're in. They're a great place to share it. Let people know about it. They are all welcome here. And of course, we got a lot of people here from all over the world. Perluigi just got here from Milan, Italy. We've got Ken in the UK, Jean-Edward in the Netherlands, Nick down in Maryland, Michael, I'm not sure where Michael's from. I know I've got Lynn here from New York, Cody, Staten Island, Darkling 2004 from El Paso, Texas. Our hearts are with you folks for everything that you have had to endure in this last week. You know, obviously I'm not going to go too deep into that because it kind of immediately becomes a very tough subject and a very political subject, but I am really sorry for everything that you are going through. So as always, gang, thanks so much for tuning in for a Wednesday evening to just talk about photography, talk about that stuff that we enjoy and that we are passionate about. So I have got a couple quick announcements that I want to give you, and then we will go ahead and we'll dive in here. I just want to make sure that I've got everything lined up where it is. So first of all, just in case you are not following me on social media, which, come on, if you're not, what are you waiting for, right? This past week, Tuesday actually, so I recorded it last week, but it was just launched this Tuesday. This Week in Photo. The headline and the title, it's a little misleading, but it's worth checking out. And by the way, if you're not familiar with This Week in Photo, it's hosted by a gentleman by the name of Frederick Van Johnson. He is awesome. This is not only a great website, but it's a great podcast. I strongly encourage it. And contrary to what you might think because of this title, it's not a Micro Four Thirds thing. It's a photography thing, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll put the link here in the chat window for you guys to check it out. We talk a little bit kind of about the state of photography in the process, not just about the full frame stuff and that, but in the process of the full frame conversation, I promise you, it's no full frame bashing. But for you full frame folks, there are some things in that conversation that I promise they're worth you considering. And I don't mean it in the sense of, hey, go sell your full frames and switch over to Olympus or Panasonic. No. I just mean they're worth you considering in terms of how you make your next gear purchase, right? Just that simple, okay? So anyway, I wanted to share that one. And then also, let me switch over to my Facebook group here. And I need to scroll down a little bit to get the link. But there's an article that I was interviewed for that just came out. Let me open this link up in Olympus Passion Magazine, which is actually about the state of photography. So again, this is not just a Micro Four Thirds conversation. So you might want to check that out. It features a lot of my work. The magazine is a paid magazine. However, the folks at Olympus Passion were great enough to provide me with a discount code to give to all of my followers. Here is the information. Let me hit enter. Oh, I got too many characters. So let's just do this in two pieces. There's the first part. What you do is when you click to purchase the magazine, click to say that you want the current copy, and it will allow you to put in your coupon code. And it's a little confusing. Once you put the coupon code in, you're not going to see the price change. Go to the top of the page where it says checkout, click that link, and you'll notice the price is set at $0. Just go ahead and hit purchase, and it's going to allow you to download the magazine in PDF format. And I will tell you, honestly, there, and I don't mean my stuff. There is some really, really amazing photography in that magazine. So I would encourage you to check it out. I don't care what brand you shoot with, but specifically my article, it's not all about Olympus. It is about things that are happening in the photography world. Of course, there's a little bit of Micro Four Thirds stuff there, but I think you might enjoy it. Last of the big announcements here that I want to share with you. I had a change in my schedule that has come up. So those of you, or if you've been following me for a while, you know that this weekend, Saturday in particular, I am going to be in Austin, Texas at Precision Camera. I'm doing two things. In the morning, I believe it's 11 a.m., I am going to be doing an event in the store at Precision Camera, where I will be demoing how I do my fashion portraits using small lights. But this is going to be a very interactive program, meaning the people that attend are going to be able to actually help me create a shot, and time permitting, one or two people in the audience may be randomly selected to also kind of take their own shot at it with my help. So I'm looking forward to that. But then Saturday evening, something a little bit different. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be in Austin, but at the Hotel Indigo, which is downtown Austin, on the rooftop swimming pool. We're going to do a 3-hour event that's sponsored by both Olympus and Delkin. As you know, I'm one of the Delkin image makers. And we're going to be doing a poolside shoot, great portraits in any light, because obviously from 6 to 9 p.m., the light's going to change dramatically during that time. We're not taking, big old strobes out there. We're not going to overpower the sun. There's not going to be, all kind of high-speed sync going on. We're going to rock it old school and work with reflectors, work with a natural light. We're going to have some great models for both events. So if you're in Austin, I hope I get to see you. But the cool thing that I just nailed down yesterday and was able to post it today, September 13th, 14th, and 15th. So basically just about a month away, I am going to be presenting in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Pixel Connection Pixel Photo Fest. Awesome event. For those of you that are familiar with Shutterfest, this is structured similarly to Shutterfest, except it's being run by a camera dealer, the Pixel Connection, which I believe they're in Avon, Ohio. Great group of people to work with. Really, really big on education, which is why they are putting so much effort into this. They've got some hardcore speakers. Just to give you an example, so here's the background on it, and I'm going to share the link. So I'll be presenting all 3 days. That's the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And I'm really proud to say I'm going to open the conference as the keynote speaker. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. I think the reason they wanted me for being a keynote speaker is because the keynote is at 8:30 a.m. on Friday morning, the 13th. So I have a feeling they just want to make sure that people are awake. That's my job. But anyway, so I'm going to be doing a, yeah, I can talk. I'm going to be doing a keynote that is all about the concept of don't be afraid to suck if you want to find success as a photographer. And remember how I define success. It's not about rich, it's not about famous, it's not about how many followers. It's just about, are you creating the kind of work that you want to be able to create on a consistent basis. And then during the 3 days, I am going to do a talk about also my fashion portraiture with small lights. I'm going to do a talk about lights, lighting modifiers, and gels. And we're going to try and demystify how you really approach lighting. And it's not going to be from the standpoint of, I do this, I do that. No, who cares about that? It's going to be a 3-hour masterclass in why. Why do you use an umbrella or a softbox? Why are you going to place the light high or low? Why do you add gels and what color gels? That's what we're going to do. So there's not going to be any of the, $1,000 flash head, really, really expensive stuff. We're going to do everything with speed lights and with pocket flashes. It's affordable, it's easy, and it's accessible. And then also, I'm going to do a photo walk there in Cleveland that is, again, like the one in Austin, all about being able to make great portraits in any kind of light. So it's all about being able to find good light in any situation, how to deal with a light that's there, work with what you have. And also, part of that whole scenario is how to make great backgrounds from crappy backgrounds, where there's no background to work with. What do you do? How do you make your shot work? So for those of you that are convenient to Cleveland, and I mean, that could be, you know, Pittsburgh area, that could be Chicago area folks, Cincinnati, heck, even if you're coming from like St. Louis, be there September 13th, 14th, and 15th. It's the Pixel Photo Fest. It's going to be at the University of Cleveland. All the information's on that website that I shared the link to. I would love to meet you, and check out the speaker list. I'm not going to lie. I'm honored to be on that speaker list, and I am honored to be the keynote speaker because there's some hardcore people that are going to be talking at this event. So you don't want to miss it if at all possible, okay? All right, so that being said, let's dive into some questions. And I'm kind of excited because we've also got some marketing questions tonight. And along with those marketing questions, I have a new analytics utility that was presented to me about a week ago that I've been trying out. And it's kind of a substitute, or I shouldn't say substitute, it's a better way and a much easier way to understand Google Analytics, which is one of those phrases that photographers tend to ignore and be somewhat afraid of. So I want to share a little bit of that platform with you, and then I'm going to keep you updated as we go along, as I dig into it more. But I do, for those of you, especially if you're doing portraits, doing weddings, if you are actively, seriously trying to market yourself for the purpose of making money, you've got a website, this is actually a great platform to look at, okay? So let's dig in. I had a couple questions come in via Facebook early on. I got plenty of room for questions though, gang, so start typing. Get those questions in. Let's do them, all right? So the first one that I got here today is from Daryl. Daryl asks, what is your opinion on the new round speed lights from Godox and Profoto? Is there any advantage over the traditional rectangular speed lights other than the LED modeling lamp? I hate to call it, so first of all, Daryl, let me just say, I mean, they're great strobes. Obviously, Profoto's crazy expensive, but they're great, right? The Godox one's really, really nice. Certainly Profoto thinks that they copied them, whatever, right? The LED modeling lamp is nice, but really, you know, I would be the first to say to anybody, like, don't buy the flash because of its modeling lamp. Like, you know, maybe, but not at least between these two, not between the Godox and the Profoto. Really what you're trying to deal with is, do you prefer a round head or do you prefer a rectangular head? And that's a matter of the shape of the light that it puts out. You know, I see people going on and saying, oh, the round head, the light is so much better. No, like guys, light is light, okay? Light travels effectively in a straight line. I say effectively because the science nerds will start typing right away and be, no, light does not travel in a straight line. It travels in waves, right? Okay, it does. But the net effect, straight line, okay? So the light's gonna do the same thing coming out of a round head as a rectangular head. It's just that it's gonna have a different shape. As light leaves the source, this is that inverse square law stuff, gang. But please, please don't run away. I know, inverse square law, bad words. Sorry, you need to learn that crap. You just do, right? Inverse square law, as the light leaves the source, it spreads exponentially, okay? So it's just spreading in a different shape. The further the light gets from the source, the less the shape of the head is even going to be noticeable. The closer it is to the source, like let's say you're going to use one of those round heads as a background light and you want to get like a round, you know, gradient shape on your background, well then the round head's going to do that much easier than the rectangular head will, because with the rectangular head, the only way you're going to get that round shape is to put some kind of modifier on it, or cheat a little bit by putting it really low and tilting it down to get just the edge. But even then, it's not going to be round, okay? It's going to have just a slight fall off, but not round. But beyond that, no. It's strictly a matter of preference. So when you see these people like, you know, banging their fists on the tables, no, round's better, oh, no. They're flashes. They're just flashes that have a different shape head, hence the light leaves them differently. I mean, think about it, gang. Studio strobes, you know, like the stuff that's hanging around back here. Like, so these Profoto, sorry, yeah, right. The Godox up there, that's got a rectangular head. The, here, I think I'm standing in front of one. Yeah, so there you go. Like the AD400, That's got a 7-inch reflector on it, which is round. So photographers have been mixing the whole rectangular and round thing for decades. Like, sorry to say, that goes back like to the 60s, right? Probably before that, actually. And we never had that debate. Never had that debate in, you know, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s when we're shooting film ever. Like, you never read a debate about, well, which is better? It's just a matter of it's a different shaped light. That's it. So, so honestly, Daryl, that would be my, you know, my feedback there. Okay. All right. Next one here. Shmuel, and God, I hope I'm not butchering that name. I apologize if I am. How do you shoot large men? I don't mean tall men or men with a little extra pounds, but men who are very overweight. I'm both thinking on how to make them look good, but also how to make them feel good and comfortable in front of the camera. So, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about somebody that's very overweight, so the phrase here in the US, and actually the medical phrase through most of the world, that would mean that that person is obese, right? So the challenge with a person who is obese, you're not going to make them look skinny, right? You're just not. And by the way, the answer I'm about to give you, it applies to men and women. Because once you're dealing with a person that is obese, the fact of the matter is they're obese. And there's only so much that you can do to minimize their size. And if you think about it, as much as they, I'm sure, would love to appear skinny, well, if you actually made them look skinny, even if you did it in Photoshop, it's not going to look like them. So you're finding a balance point where certainly you do not want to make them look worse or heavier than what they are, but your job is to at least, you know, make them feel the best. So the simple cheat, and this is not going to work for everything because it's going to depend on why are you taking that picture? Like, what is that portrait for? Okay? The simple cheat is to shoot down on the person. So if you're working with a really overweight person and you need to thin them out a little bit, shoot from above looking down. Why do you do that? Perspective. You're going to create an optical illusion. It's the same scenario by which we determine which is a person's good side. By putting their head, which ironically for an overweight or obese person, the head is usually one of the smallest parts of their body. By putting that closer to the camera, you are making it look bigger in relationship to the rest of their body, which by default then makes the rest of the body look smaller. Okay? That is honestly the only cheat. Now, let me address one other piece, okay? Because in your question here, in the second sentence, you mentioned, but also how to make them feel good and comfortable in front of the camera. That's really the key. I don't care if a person is stick thin and underweight, or obese and overweight, or somewhere in between. And I don't care if you have them sitting down, standing up. I don't care if you have them doing some dramatic pose or just kind of hanging out. It doesn't matter what you do if you can't get the body language to look relaxed. So understand, if you're going to photograph people, the first step is build the relationship. Put them at ease. Make sure that they understand you are looking at them as a fellow human being, not as a subject. When we say, oh, subject, it almost sounds like, you know, it's an object. No, they're a human. They have emotions and feelings and the same kinds of fears and objections to being in front of a camera as you do, right? So if you're going to work with somebody who is really overweight, which means they're probably not thrilled about getting in front of your camera, step one, before we even worry about what pose, before we worry about do we shoot high, whatever, step one is work on that relationship, build that trust, show that appreciation so they understand that you see them and you respect them as a human being. And please, guys, you can't just say to them, hey, listen, like, I really respect you. I'm going to make you look good. You know, talk is cheap, right? It's truly about making the person feel that way. The better the body language is, which comes from emotion, it comes from how you are treating your subject. The better the body language is, anything is going to look better. Anything will look better, okay? But the rest of your question really depends on, are you shooting a portrait? Are you shooting a full-length picture? Are you going to shoot them, you know, sitting down? Each of those things brings some other, you know, issues into the scenario. But for the sake of a portrait, yes, try and shoot high, look down. It just gives a better body perspective. But that's not going to work all the time. The most important thing is put that person at ease. That's the most important thing. Okay? All right. Next up here from Germano, do you have any process for matching makeup or outfit colors with the background color? I remember you commenting on a video about a website's color wheel, but what if you don't like the combination? You change the background color until you find a combination that you like, and what elements do you value most when it comes to matching the makeup? The tone of the skin, the clothes? Okay, so again, I got to give full disclosure here, and then you can hate me. I don't consider any of that stuff. Like I literally, in the process of doing my beauty shots, that just does not come into the conversation. So actually, I did a shoot on Tuesday of this week, so yesterday, where we were using a lot of red. And so Monet, my makeup artist, we were having discussions about adding in some purple or maybe adding in some hot pink. So that was a scenario where we actually did go back and forth a little while because I had picked out a reddish color background. I was using the TV setup for the background, as you see me do on Instagram. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, follow me on Instagram, right? But I had the TV set up. I had a red background that I was using. We had a red wig on the model. And we were debating on, do we go with some purple or some hot pink, you know, in the eyes? Honestly, neither one of those was exciting me given that I was using the red background. So here's as much of a thought process as I can give you, because I don't have this is how I do it, Germano. Unfortunately, this color stuff, it comes kind of very instinctively to me. So as I mentioned to you guys, I'm working on a video for you that's going to teach you a lot about the science and how you can learn this if you have a hard time with it. But in that conversation, for me, as I explained to Monet, my makeup artist, because anytime I say to a makeup artist, and by the way, here's another tip, gang. If you're working with a makeup artist and he or she has an idea, or you're discussing an idea and you don't like it, you don't think it's a good idea, I'll tell you honestly, I have no problem saying that sucks. I'm not being a jerk. I will never, ever end my sentence with that sucks. I then have to explain to my makeup artist why I think it sucks. And even if it's kind of one of those things where I can't quite put my finger on it, I've got to give them a brain dump of everything that's going through my head, because they're not going to come into my studio and make a suggestion that they think sucks, right? Who would do that? They're not. The fact that they suggested it, they think it's a good idea. So part of collaborating, when you're having that back and forth, there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't like that. But you have to provide, and here's my favorite 3-letter word, you have to provide the why, right? It's just that simple. So the why that I gave her for not wanting a lot of the pink and definitely not wanting the purple is they were going to be like lips and eyes. So I was going to have a very pale young model, dark red wig, dark red background, and then this little burst of purple or hot pink, and then some hot pink in the eyes. I felt that would pull all the attention to the purple and the pink. And then I would lose the girl, because as much as I do all that crazy makeup stuff, my subject is always there. They're always in the midst of it. That's why I do so much eye contact, all that kind of stuff. So what we settled on was going with a dark red on the lips. And I don't mean like the bright red dark. I mean like an earthy, like a burgundy kind of lip, so that it blended in with the background colors. And then we did just a hint of magenta on the eyes so that they were offset slightly, but not so much that that they would, you know, pull all the attention. Let's see, Sven's question here. I want to add this in because it's kind of part of what we're talking about. Wow, I have 2 Svens watching the show tonight. How cool is that, right? So let me get rid of Germanos here. Whoop, I've got Sven's in here a couple of times. Sorry, guys. Sven said, "What I'm not convinced, can you convince me? An acceptable replacement? Would that be an acceptable replacement for That Sucks?" Of course, Sven. I'm just being really honest. Like, my makeup artist, if you've watched my videos about working with a makeup artist, which are on my YouTube channel, you know that I am all about establishing a relationship with my collaborators so that we understand each other and we develop a language. You might have noticed I'm a little type A, right? So I don't waste a whole lot of time. I don't waste a whole lot of words when I'm in the studio and I'm working. And I don't think it's actually that often that I use the word suck, but I will say, no, I hit that idea, here's why. Boom, and go from there. I don't have the patience in that moment. I want to be clear. In that moment, I don't have the patience for being soft and sensitive and taking time. Like I've got that adrenaline, that energy going. I want that creativity happening. But now I'll give you a flip side of that, because I'm talking about a makeup artist that I work with all the time. I've worked with her for 3 or 4 years now. She knows me really well, etc. This weekend, I will be in Austin, Texas. In a month, I'll be in Cleveland, Ohio. I will be working with makeup artists that I do not have a relationship with. In Austin, the makeup artist, I have met her once before. I met her in December at an event that I did in Austin. So I've at least had communications with her before, so she knows a little bit of what to expect. The makeup artist that I will be working with in Cleveland, I don't even know who it is yet, right? So certainly I will make it a very conscious point to dial down some of my intensity in, that situation. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to tell them I don't like something. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I've got to make that clear, because at the same time, by saying, hey, I don't like this, or I hate that, that's a very clear indication to the other party as to how strongly I do not want them to do that. Because remember, guys, once you press the button, ladies, guys, once you press the button, you do not get to go and bitch about your makeup artist or bitch about your model. Nobody held a gun to your head and made you push the button, right? So you are in control in your shoot, and you have to maintain control. So obviously everybody's going to have their own kind of little way of how they handle that communication. But for me, I'm definitely type A. My energy level is high in a shoot. I'm not going to spend a lot of time being politically correct and doing a dance back and forth because I'm afraid I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. The people that come to work with me, they know I want to put out good work. They know that I am committed to that. They know that I am hyper-focused on that. And, I generally do not have a problem with that. So, okay? All right. Next question here. I see some great questions coming in, guys. Keep them coming. We'll be able to get to these. So, whoops, sorry. Let me switch that screen here. There we go. From German, what is your favorite camera and lens or lenses for travel, like not business-related travel? I would give you 2 answers. So my trip to Vegas that I took last week, which was vacation, I did no work other than a few emails and that kind of stuff. It was actually really nice. The camera of choice that I took was the Olympus TG6. Love it. Love this little camera. It is awesome. I did have my bag with me. So I had an EM1X, I had an EM1 Mark II, I had a couple lenses, but this is the camera that left the hotel room every day. The camera bag actually stayed. The camera bag goes everywhere with me, right? But this is the one that left the hotel room with me every day. This is the one that I actually did take pictures with. So love this camera for a walk around camera. It's awesome. If I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more versatile, and if I wanted to work with either my EM1 Mark II or my EM1X, then I would wind up taking, and again, it depends on exactly what I'm doing, but if I was strictly concerned with size, but I wanted versatility, I would probably take the EM1 Mark II with the 12 to 100 f4 lens. So for you full frame folks, by comparison, that's a 24 to 200 millimeter lens. That big, right? So there's, right, small. So those would be my go-tos. But don't hate me, to be honest. I'm one of those people, when I go on vacation, I don't take a lot of pictures. So vacation is vacation. Don't get me wrong, I love photography. Duh, right? But vacation is just that, it's time away. So I'll take snapshots. I will take, pictures of things that I find humorous and interesting and that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not one of those people that goes on vacation and then tries to tailor my whole vacation so that I'm at the right location at the right time of day. So if you just think about it, gang, if you just go on vacation and you do the random tourist thing, right? Where, you take a couple tours or whatever, you are generally not at these cool spots at the best time of day, unless you're doing like a photo tour, right? But that's not really vacation. At least it wouldn't be for me, right? So if I'm on vacation, the likelihood of me hitting these locations that I would maybe want to photograph at the perfect time of day is very slim. And it's not going to be a vacation if I'm getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning to get the sunrise, and if I'm missing dinner to go get a sunset and all that stuff, well, then I'm working. So I'm actually fine not taking a lot of pictures. The few pictures that I took on this Vegas vacation were some pictures of my wife that she asked me to take of her. The other things that I took pictures of, I found it extremely humorous just how many rather nasty Donald Trump souvenirs they have in Las Vegas. So I was taking pictures of a lot of those in the stores to send back to my son and that kind of stuff. But other than that, I didn't shoot a lot of stuff. But those would be my two cameras, of choice. Okay. All right. Next question. I got two more here, and then one more, and then we're into the chat window. This one is from Mike. One thing that he's missing with his 8200 is a modeling light when you use the bulb in a softbox. So now the Godox AD-B2 dual head holder has LED modeling lights. Don't need for the power, but the light just to help when getting his light in position. How bright are they? And since there's two LEDs, are both lights on when just using one 8200 on it? So let's take the second question. No, you need two flashes in the back to power the two lights. That's the first thing. Second thing, are they that bright? No, they're not even worth it. If you are going to go with the Godox system, you're not going to have super bright modeling lights unless you go with their AC powered studio strobe. So a lot of people don't realize Godox makes AC powered studio strobes. Yeah, they do. In fact, here, I just got my hands on two of them. This particular one is the Godox MS300, okay? Notice, has power cord, right? Which, detaches, but nonetheless, it has a power cord. There's your controls on the back. Sorry, it's not plugged in AC now, so I can't show you. But if you look inside, it has a traditional tungsten modeling lamp in it, which I believe is like a 60 or 100 watt bulb. So it's pretty bright, okay? This particular one's at the 300 watt second, so this is like really small. So, that's an option. It has the Bones mount, obviously. They don't come with the reflector on it. By the way, you buy the reflector separate. If you need a brighter modeling light, that's going to be the solution. But then you lose the ability to go with the lithium batteries. So, that's kind of the challenge there. But yeah, I honestly would not invest the money in that dual head holder just for the sake of having the modeling light. That would be my response. And even for the Godox 8200s, they actually make an LED head that you can put on them. Definitely don't waste your money on that. It's like about as bright as a candle. So yeah, it's horrible. Okay. All right. So into the chat windows now. Okay. Let's scroll on back here and see what we got. Nick's got a question here. He just got the TG. Oh, so there's a follow up on the TG6. He just got a TG6 for the family vacation. I'll tell you, it's kind of cool how many people are actually picking up this camera. It's like pretty amazing. Can you explain the 2 flash accessories? What other accessories do you recommend? So the only accessory that I recommend, honestly, Nick, I'm an Olympus guy, right? The flash accessories are kind of pointless in my mind because it's such a tiny light source and it's so light on power. It's nice for doing the macro stuff, right? Because this camera has the microscope mode where you can like do the macro settings and that. But the accessory that I would encourage you to get, your camera, Nick, probably looks slightly different because I have a lens cap on it. So the way the camera comes, it's usually got a ring around here, but no lens cap. And it does have a glass covering, but still, I always worry about that, getting smudged up, being a mess, etc. So I have this new gadget that they just came out with at the same time they came out with the TG6. If you have a TG5, it works on the TG5 as well. And it's just twist open, twist close. It's great. That's the one accessory that I would encourage you to get. And then, it's not a bad idea to get a spare battery for any camera, obviously. With the TG6, you don't need a battery charger. The cord plugs right into the camera for the charging purposes. But yeah, it's always nice. I mean, if you think you're going to be out like for a full day and you're going to take a lot of pictures, then yeah, have a spare battery. They're super small, so it's worth carrying carrying a spare battery with you. Okay. All right, and let's see here. Next up. All right, scrolling on down. From the new Sven. So we have the old Sven, which I'm sure he appreciates, and the new Sven. A question, what makes for a good background for the light blaster? You got your clammy hands on an old film camera, a Nikon FA, wow. Then some Velvia 50 and Ektachrome 100. Film is a 4-letter word, Sven. Just saying. You want to make your own stuff. So, what makes a good background? Almost anything. So what I did, so for those of you that don't know what the whole light blaster thing is, shame on you. I did a video about it. Shocker. Let me find the video here. The light blaster is made by a company called Spiffy Gear. Okay. Let me get the link and I'll actually switch my window over so you can see it. This is the light blaster. Whoops. I really did not want to play the video. This is the light blaster video right there, okay? The link for it is right. Whoops, that's not it. Let's try that one more time. Copy the link address, put it in here. All right, and so there's the link for the light blaster video. So what I did, Sven, is I took some of my old, since you're a film guy, all right, since we're gonna do the film thing here, I took some of my old 35mm transparencies that were some abstract shots. And then I went to a stock photo site and I downloaded, cheap stock photo site, and I downloaded some like textures and interesting patterns. And I sent them off. I Googled, Google. I Googled a company that would take digital files and turn them into 35mm transparencies, which is what the light blaster holds. I found a company in Ohio through Google, and this was like 2 years ago, so unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the company, but Google, you'll find them. It was cheap. I want to say it was like about $1 a slide, something like that, maybe $1.50, but still really, really inexpensive. Took about a week. And so I, paid the money online, uploaded the files. A week later, the slides came back, and then I basically had created my own backgrounds. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you watch that video, I mentioned the company and give the link to it in there. All that information is there, so check that out. But the light blaster is a ton of fun. In fact, I just picked up a second one, so I have 2 of them now, and I got myself 2 cheap Yangwano lenses that I'm going to put on them since my Olympus lenses won't fit. And I've got a couple ideas that I want to play around with them. So I'm kind of looking forward to playing with the Light Blaster again because it's been a while since I've had a chance to really play with it. So, all right, next up here, Jean-Edouard. So I know Jean-Edouard. He's one of my Tog Knowledge members, so I appreciate him. But Jean-Edouard, you know that I'm going to give you crap for this question. And I saw there's another comment down the list here, so I'll find that one in a minute. Interesting perspective up for discussion. So right out of the box, we are going to have to agree to disagree, Jean-Edouard. There is not a damn thing that is interesting about this topic. There isn't. I've talked about it 70 million times. Okay, in Donald Trump terms, right? I was with a group of people, not Togs, so these are just real folk. And one of them asked him why he doesn't do watermarks. He explained, because he follows me, he's one of my Tog Knowledge members, he knows how I feel about watermarks, but everybody kept saying they make the image look more pro. When I was a kid, Jean-Edouard, here in the United States, I know you're in Netherlands, my parents used to give me the lecture that included the phrase, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you follow them? Just saying. Right? Look, I don't care what we're talking about. There will be people that will debate if it's black or white, right or wrong. You name it. So it's not an interesting discussion. Why the hell do you feel the need to keep discussing it? Stop being so anxious, because you're anxious. You're simply afraid, am I doing the wrong thing? You've listened to me, Jean-Edouard, for at least 2 years, probably more. You've listened to me talk about watermarks. You know my reasoning behind watermarks. You know my justification behind not using watermarks. And yet, you are still doubting yourself because you know where I stand. And the justification that I use for watermarks, or I should say against watermarks, it hasn't changed. You didn't suddenly, like in the last couple of months or the last year, you haven't started seeing all of the biggest photographers in the world start putting watermarks on their images. You haven't seen psychology. You're a psychology person, Jean-Edouard. You know how to read research. Go read about usability. Go read, in fact, look up the Stanford Boynton Project, Boytner. Stanford Boynton Project. These are the people that wrote the book on reading usability. Science. Go do your homework and stop asking me. Like, I'm honest, John, I love you, man, but I'm sorry. Like, stop being so anxious. If you believe that you should put watermarks on your pictures, then man, put watermarks on your pictures and move on. Life is too short to be worried about watermarks. Like it really is. And if it makes sense to you to not put watermarks on it, then don't. Because the only people that actually care about watermarks are newbie photographers. Or photographers that like their ego inflated and who are too damn lazy to create work that is so good, people will know it's theirs. Those are the only people they care about watermarks, right? So that I can continue that rant now, let's scroll down here. Sven added, back in the old days, some photographers embossed their studio logo in the corner of the prints. His semi-transparent watermark is the same. He wants a proper embossing stamp. Sven, good for you. You're just ruining your pictures, period. That's all there is to it. The fact that back in the day, photographers did emboss on prints, yep, that was the thing. Absolutely. But understand, okay, back in the day, when photographers embossed in prints, they embossed on the back most of the time. Obnoxious ones put it on the front sometimes. But here's the difference, Sven. How did people see that watermark? They only saw that watermark if they were holding the photograph in their hands. Fast forward, 2019, how do people see your watermark? They see your watermark on a picture, on the internet, within 2 inches of a link, a clickable link that immediately goes to your profile or your Instagram or your website. Back in the day, Photographers did not have that luxury to people to look at that watermark and click and immediately go and view the portfolio and make a buying decision. They couldn't click that watermark and go and look at a website and fill out a contact form. So it's not the same, Sven. This is not the same. For those of you that may be new, I'm sure you now understand how I feel about watermarks. Okay? So anyway, yeah, I mean, guys, seriously, if it bothers you that much, just do it. But I'm done talking about watermarks. I've talked about them a million times, and my statement is real simple. Only idiots use watermarks. You can quote me, put it on a billboard, hate me for it, I don't care. That's it. Done, right? So, all right, next up. I felt good. I'm not going to lie. That felt good, okay? Let's see. Jimmy Hill. I got a marketing question. I'm looking to expand my headshot business, and I was wondering if you had any good business-to-business marketing tips. And he did continue his question, and that question is, right now he's spending about $700 to $800 per month on mailers for about 20. Woo! $700 to $800 a month on mailers. So, I mean, Jimmy, I can give you lots of marketing tips, but that's kind of a lazy question. So please don't get me wrong. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Do you have marketing tips? And I'm trying to expand my headshot business. You know, and I get it, business to business. That's still just a really, really tiny little piece of information. I need a lot. Yeah, you guys can hear the car horn. Yeah, it's literally right outside the window, and somebody has not figured it out yet. So it's not mine, though. I promise. It is not my car. So there you go. Just stop. So what I need, Jimmy, and I'm hoping you're still here. Give me a little bit more information. So right out of the box, I'm really curious about these mailers that you're spending $700 to $800 on. And you say clients. Client implies that you've already done work for these people. So I think you mean to say potential clients, right? So if you're spending $800 a month on potential clients, what I would like to know is, what do these mailers consist of? Can you tell me a little bit about the format, what's on them, et cetera? And could you tell me currently, what is your turnover rate on that $800 worth of clients, or $800 worth of mailers with 20 clients? If you're sending it out to 20 potential clients, how many sales are you making on a monthly basis? And what are you charging for the work that you're doing? If you give me that, I'm sorry, Jimmy, I need to know where you're located in the world, okay? Give me that information, and then I can give you a lot of feedback, right? But I need a little bit more detail, and I'll gladly do it. If you start typing, send me more information. I will gladly dig into it. I love it when we get the marketing questions. I love when we have people here that are really, you know, kind of working to make a buck at this, okay? Because it's a gutsy thing to do. You guys hear me talk all the time about, you know, professional photographers are really dumb people, right? Because we decide we want to make money with something that we love. And that doesn't always work well. So I'm always up for marketing questions. And here, I got another one from Jimmy right now. So let me just grab that. I saw it slide by. And all right, so he adds here, maybe marketing avenues would be a better question. Direct mail has reached the point of diminishing returns, which, yeah, I mean, you'll find if you look at marketing statistics nationally, I'm assuming you're in the US, Jimmy, direct mail in general is not doing well. He goes on to say direct mail has reached the point of diminishing returns. $700 to $800 gets him 1,200 mailers for 20 paying customers at $250 each. New York City area, so right out of the box, there's heavy competition. Jimmy, what kind of customers are you going after, though? Can you give me some examples? Because, I mean, I have to assume that you're not going for, like, small business stuff here, that you're going for, like, major corporations. And what kind of work are you trying to get out of those major corporations? So I'm assuming you don't mean, like one headshot. You mean, like, hey, I want to do headshots for your whole, like, C-level suite of executives, or give me, again, I still need a little bit more info, right? Because otherwise, you know, Jimmy, I'm just going to be spouting off a bunch of opinions that probably don't connect with your needs. So again, I'm not trying to be difficult, man, but the more information you give me, the more that I can apply my experience in doing that kind of stuff and try and help you, or at least if nothing else, I'll try and point you to some resources that I think would be valuable for you, okay? All right, let's see, scrolling up here. Sven, about the embossing comment, I completely understood it. It meant paper, right? They put it on prints. I did explain that because you hold it in your hand, right? I got it. So, and trust me, I would never let facts get in the way of a good rant, ever. Come on, I live in America. Why would I do that? Just saying. Let's see, Adam. We have a local photographer that now puts master photographer on his watermark on each and every print people pay for. Yeah, well, you know, we'll see how long that works out for him. He probably will not be doing that for very long. All right, scrolling back up here. Let's see. Photomix Media. This is the corrected version of his question. How can a photographer stand out from a saturated industry like photography? So, see, Photomix, I got to be honest with you. So follow around, guys, okay? Or follow on. I have to say that the problem with your question is you're making a very poor assumption. This is a common complaint / whine, as in whining, like wah, that I hear from photographers all the time. You are making the assumption that this is a saturated industry. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Now, you have to ask why. At least you're probably asking why, since I challenged it. So first of all, you asked an extremely general question. Photographer. 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 I don't have anything bigger, but you get the point, okay? So what kind of photographer are we talking about? We're talking about portraits, weddings, we're talking about commercial advertising, we're talking about fashion, because guess what? None of those industries is really any more saturated today than it was 40 years ago. But let me explain, and I'll take the two that most people refer to in this conversation, portraits and weddings. For face value, portraits and weddings as an industry are indeed, I'm agreeing with you ever so slightly, for face value, they are indeed much more saturated than they were 20 or 30 years ago. I would agree, at face value. But the fact of the matter is, the overwhelming majority of people shooting portraits and weddings, in the United States in particular, are working part-time, number one. Believe it or not, in the US, 60% of professional photographers, in other words, photographers charging money for their services, 60% have a day job. They're doing it part-time. It's only 40% of them working full-time. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or otherwise. It is what it is. The world evolves, gang. Get over it. It's not bad, right? Lots of people work 2 jobs. It's how it is. But the fact of the matter is, there is still a small percentage of photographers that make a ton of money. Every one of you that shoots portraits or weddings knows a photographer in your area that charges like a minimum of $5,000 for a wedding, minimum. And you're all like, man, I wish I could get $5,000. Or you know the guy that, you know, maybe you're in a good market, you know the guy that charges 10, 15, 20 grand. You're like, man, I wish I could get that for a wedding. I just can't. Why can't you? He's getting it. So why aren't you asking, how is it he's getting it? Or she, sorry, he or she, how are they getting it? And I'm not. Easy. One, they're working harder. A hell of a lot harder. They just are, okay? 2, they have worked to differentiate themselves from the crowd. How do you do that? Do something that's unique. Do something that nobody else is doing. Stop being a zombie photographer and taking your flash outside and overpowering the sun and using high-speed sync, blah, blah, blah. Boring as hell. Everybody does it. So what's the point? You know, like you guys follow me, and with a question like this, you follow me, but you just don't get it. I'm not the greatest photographer in the world. Freaking not even close, and I'm not being modest, gang. Let's have some straight talk here, right? I do okay work. People pay attention to my work because it's different. People pay attention to my work because the details are really clean. There's no sloppy crap. There's nothing out of place. It's tight. And people pay attention to my work because you're my customers. I give back. I provide value. It's the same equation that you guys hear me talk about in terms of how do you find success as a photographer, because you go and you look at those $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 wedding photographers. Go and look at those photographers that are not only getting $20,000, but they're getting paid to travel around the world to do it. They may not be the best photographers in the world either. In fact, many of them, most of them, are not the best photographers in the world. They're really good. Their work is tight. The details, awesome. Their style, it's unique and identifiable. And the service that they provide on that wedding is by far and above anything you're doing. That's why they're making that money. And then below them is a bunch of wannabes. Sorry, gang, I'm not trying to be insulting, but it's a bunch of wannabes. I want to be a photographer, but I'm not putting in the work. I'm not putting in the effort. That's the problem, right? So honestly, you know, Photomix, the way you do it, you work, you bust your butt. You bust your butt, you practice, you know your stuff, you learn your stuff, you fight to build your creativity, you build a style and a service that's unique, and then you convince people that it's worth it. And you also have to understand that you don't have to stand out in the industry. Like, you want to be a YouTuber? Okay, well then that's a different conversation. But if you're trying to be a photographer who gets paid to take pictures, then you only have to stand out amongst your clients, not the industry. You don't need 100,000 followers. You don't need 50,000 followers. You could have 40 followers, and if all 40 of those followers are putting money in your pocket, dude, you're doing awesome, right? So that's the approach. But I think you're looking at it too broadly, and you're making some bad assumptions, honestly. And you're not alone, Photomix Media. Believe me, it's a very, very common question. I get the question a lot. And it usually comes from people that just aren't willing to actually put in the work. You know, I was out in Vegas. I met a guy while I was eating dinner, wound up having a conversation. The guy knew me. He had seen me online, the whole bit, but he wasn't like a diehard follower. So we had a long conversation, and literally before the conversation, I was like, man, I want to do what you do. How do I get to that point? I was like, get started now. It only took me 42 years. He wasn't really thrilled with my answer. But it was the truth, right? Because he'd only been shooting for like 2 years. Then he actually had some nice images, but you know, still missing a lot of details. Still didn't have a style. It was all over the place. Spending all his time watching YouTube videos. Not mine, mostly. But yeah. So I told him, I was like, yeah, get to work. You're young. He was like in his mid-20s. So you can pull it off. But there's no shortcuts. Right? That's the problem. There's just no shortcuts. And I'm not trying to be glib about that. I'm just being honest. Right? So, anyway, next question. Let's see. Heading back down here. So, I know there was some new stuff that came in for Jimmy. So, this is the guy that's spending $700 to $800 a month looking for marketing avenues. He's currently going after lawyers, realtors, accountants, and private practice, looking to move up to bigger companies or for upper management. Headshots and such, and then he did add here, he says he did headshots for researchers, marketing, and pharma company recently, over 30 people, looking for more work like that. You know, so here's the one tip that I will give you, Jimmy. He did add here in relationship. So Charles Unitas said to him, I don't have Jimmy's budget, so I do a lot of door-to-door knocking, introducing myself, etc., word of mouth. It's a slow process. And then Jimmy responded to him. He started through word of mouth and Craigslist and started putting profits into marketing. Mailer costs are less than 1/5 of his income. The taxes hit him worse. Well, yeah, so thing about taxes is, welcome to making money, right? So, I mean, that's just kind of part of the problem. But so here's what I would recommend to you, Jimmy. I mean, there's a couple things, right? I think at some point this fall, I want to dedicate 1 or 2 TogChats, like a full night to marketing. And I think actually that some of the stuff that you're talking about actually would be really fun if you don't mind at the time to kind of use as a case study and dig into. But here's what I'm going to recommend that you do now. I know quite a few photographers, commercial photographers, advertising photographers, photographers in the fashion world who do the mailer thing, who print cards, who actually print portfolios to send out, all that stuff. And it's getting really, really, really frustrating for them because the return is just not there. Part of the reason for that is, yeah, there is a little more competition than there used to be. Also, the buyers, whether it be, an accounting office, and maybe it's their office manager that goes out and look, or maybe it's a fashion magazine, it's the art director. They've got much easier access today to new talent, right? So, yeah, you want to get your stuff in front of them, but, when you send a mailer, that's kind of the equivalent of sending junk mail. It is, right? Because they didn't ask for it. We all get junk mail, and you know how it is. So now here's the challenge, right? The reason why a lot of companies will still persist with junk mail is because if they know that if they can make their message good enough, if they can get it enticing enough, the person may not act on it right away, but then it kind of goes into a spot. And all of you have a spot in your house other than the trash can. When the mail comes in, your wife will take that Kohl's 30% off coupon and set it somewhere, like, right inside the front door. It's in the kitchen. With my wife, it's on the dining room table. Like, there it is, because we got to go to Kohl's, 30% off, right? Ajax, thank you so much for the super chat. So, one side of this argument will argue, it's still worth doing that because people will frequently not throw it out right away if they like your work and if they think what you're offering is good. They'll hang on to it for a while, so at least it gets moved around the desk a couple times before they finally get to the point where like, yeah, you know what, I don't need this tossed. To me, that's just still too high a risk. What I would actually consider that you do, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So you're going to take 1 month of this money that you're spending, but it's going to pay you back for a full year. You're going to go out and you're going to get a 1-year LinkedIn premium membership. It's somewhere between $500 and $600. Okay? In fact, mine just renewed a couple months ago. So the reason why you want to get the LinkedIn premium membership is because you then can find easy access to anyone in any company if they have a LinkedIn profile. And if you are working in the corporate world today, you have a LinkedIn profile. Yeah. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to put together a mailing piece, but you are not going to send it in the mail. You are going to send it via Messenger on LinkedIn, and you're not just going to drop in cold. First of all, when you send a connection request to the people, you're not just going to click connect. You're going to send them a message. Introduce yourself. When they accept it, then you're going to send them a link to this piece that I'm talking about. So in other words, you're basically going to create a landing page on your website. So you're not going to just send them to your website randomly. You're going to create a landing page that is essentially the equivalent of the mailers that you're currently spending $700 to $800 a month for. But even when you send them that follow-up email with that link, you've got to put a little effort into it. So you're only going to spend $500 for the year, but you're still going to have an overhead every month. And that overhead, though, is going to be your time. Your time to actually write correspondence. It's, like back in the old days, actually write a letter or write a card. Well, you are going to write a message to them. So that means that you've got to go look at their corporate website so that when you write that message to them, you are referencing things in their world. Not just saying, hey, I know you guys could use headshots. No, that's generic BS. And you're going to say to them, it's like, I understand you're the director of marketing, but maybe you don't handle the internal stuff for your website. Could you possibly put me in touch with the right person just so that I can forward them my contact information to keep on file? Right? So you're making polite inroads through really easy to find contacts. Because anybody in a C-level is going to have a LinkedIn profile, but basically anybody in upper level management, anybody in the corporate world, they're going to be on LinkedIn. So, given that we only have a finite amount of time tonight, I appreciate the additional information. There's definitely more that we could talk about. I do think that you're ultimately probably hitting a saturation point for what you're going to get out of these mailers, especially you're paying a high price for them. Your return rate, I think somebody did the math, it was like 1.6% of that. And for direct mail, that is correct. It's not bad. But I prefer putting Anthony, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. I prefer putting my efforts into something that's going to maybe only give me the same return rate or slightly higher, but is going to help me build a relationship at the same time, because that relationship can pay off big dividends down the road. So, and that's one of the ways where social media is really great, and social media is undervalued by lazy marketers, okay? So what I've just described to you, Jimmy, is old school, right? It's kind of the way we did business back in the 80s, but we're using the internet, we're using LinkedIn. And it works, man, it works. There are a lot of commercial and fashion people in New York and that are, doing the same thing, okay? So you're gonna put together some stuff on your website, make a contact, very personal, follow up, very personal, with specific information about their company, their potential needs, and then a link to where they can go and sample your work and get some more information about what you do. And then from that page, they can click through to the rest of your website. So it's a landing page. That would be my advice, okay? Anthony, you work for Kohl's? Oh my God, man, do you really? Just please tell me you're not in marketing, and please tell me you're not the guy that came up with the 30% off coupon. And please, Anthony, tell me that you're not the guy that came up with Kohl's Cash. Come on, guys. Kohl's Cash is like giving crack to an addict. Like, really? That's what I say to my wife every time we go to Kohl's and they hand her that Kohl's Cash. It's like, there it is, crack to an addict right there. It's like, God. So, yeah, anyway, I know it's probably not your decision, Anthony. So, Jimmy, so yeah, man, definitely go and spend a little bit more time in Lincoln. You'll find there's a lot of value there. There really is, okay? But it's going to take a little bit more of your physical time to do it, okay? So let's see here. Sliding on up. Charles, thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it, okay? Let's see. From Nick, observation that a lot of marketing stuff is not really photography specific. Maybe folks should consider some general business or marketing courses. You know what, Nick? Most marketing stuff is not photography specific. Marketing is marketing. I mean, it really is, because understand, gang, all marketing is based in psychology, right? It is. So, yeah, I mean, I talked to a young man in my Tog Knowledge group last night. We did our weekly Zoom chat. He's in Montana, of all places, and he's starting up, a business doing portraits and some wedding stuff and all that. But he's still currently in college. And I told him, it's like, and he's a business major, which is awesome, right? So he's getting the business acumen. But I told him, I said, man, before you get out of college, go take a marketing class. Just marketing 101, take a marketing class while you can still do it cheaper, right? Because you're already enrolled. Basic business, basic marketing are very valuable to any photographer. They really, really are, okay? All right, let's see. Adam. I've read and seen the suggestion of hobbyists like myself doing a little side hustle to pay for their gear, shooting portraits, etc. What's the safe thing to do without being insured? Adam, insurance is actually dirt cheap. So first thing you want to do is you want to sign up with PPA. Sorry, completely lost my mind. Professional Photographers of America. It's going to cost you, it's somewhere between $200 and $300 a year. I should know the number because I talk about it all the time. I don't. The point is, as part of that membership, you get $15,000 worth of equipment insurance included. Metamurph, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, really, I appreciate it. So that covers part of your insurance situation. And then the other thing you need to worry about, Adam, is liability insurance. That's the only other insurance you really got to have, because you're not talking about opening a studio. You're going to go out to people's locations and that kind of stuff. Liability insurance is actually really cheap. On this studio that I have right here, I had to, part of the leasing requirements, I had to have a $2 million liability policy to be able to lease this studio. I'm only paying about $550 a year for a $2 million liability policy, right? So you got to remember, Adam, if you know, there's that old phrase, it kind of takes money to make money, right? So right there, we're talking, you know, let's say we'll round up big. Let's say it costs you $1,000 a year for insurance, Adam. So yes, $1,000 is, you know, a lot of money. And Nick says your friends at the IRS will be interested. So of course, yes, Adam, you need to claim your taxes, right? But here's the simple math. Let's take that $1,000, right? If you're going to start a side hustle and you can't make $1,000, then maybe you shouldn't start a side hustle, right? Because let's just say, Adam, you were going to get a part-time job at Walmart, right? So you've already got a day job. If you were looking at a part-time job somewhere, and if you looked at Walmart and said, well, you know what? I'm going to work at Walmart 15 hours a week after doing my day job, and I'm only going to be able to make $900 for a whole year, you'd go look elsewhere. You wouldn't go to Walmart for that job. Just saying, right? So that's the other thing that you got to remember, gang. So many photographers, when they decide to turn pro, right? Part-time or full-time, doesn't matter. They think it's kind of like telling the world on social media, I'm pro, come and get me. And then nobody shows up, right? So the trick is, you got to go get them, right? They're not going to come to you. But $1,000 is actually not a lot of overhead. It's just not. So, all right. Next up here, sliding on up. Guy Wright, the best way to make a small fortune in photography is to start with a large fortune. I've heard that joke a lot of times, but fortunately, there's a lot of photographers that prove that wrong. So that's good. All right. And again, I know I've got some newer ones, but I want to go back because I have a feeling I missed a few early on. Let's see here. Oh no, it looks like I'm... So actually here's one that I missed. There's two that I missed. Good, cool, so let's get these. So Michael, I shot through a modifier in bright sun and got real close to a strobe look on a real bright day. Is there a way to get close to that strobe look without using a strobe and just using a speed light? Michael, a speed light is a strobe. So I'm assuming what you mean is you use like a Godox 8400 or 8600, like a studio strobe, as opposed to a speed light. But they're both strobes, right? Sure, you can do it with speed lights. I mean, I'm trying to suppress a rant, right? All good photography, Michael. All good photography. And so all of you high-speed sync, all of you overpower the sun people, please listen to this, please. And then you have my blessing. Go back to overpowering the sun and using high-speed sync. But just please. All good photography is going to be the result of problem solving, right? So the problem, when I go on these rants about overpowering the sun and high-speed sync and being a zombie photographer, so high-speed sync, super bright strobes, overpowering the sun. We used to do that back in the 70s and the 80s when we didn't have flashes that were nearly as powerful as we do now. But how do we solve that problem? Easy. We would move our subject into the shade with a sunlit area behind them. And then once they're in the shade, it's like we're in a studio. Use the strobes, everything's great. So we solve the problem by just move the subject. Photographers today have two problems going on. And this is part of the root of your question, Michael. Problem number one, they're lazy. They just want to be able to do it anywhere. I want to stand here in the middle of this beach where I really don't have much of a background anyway because it's frickin' noon and I want to overpower the sun. Cool, so I need a 600 watt second flash set 2 feet from my subject to do that. Okay, so you do that picture and it looks like every other zombie photographer out there because everybody and their brother is doing it. Once again, why do what everybody else does? Unless you can bring something different to the table, why? Solve the problems. So the first reason is lazy. The second reason is because they're a zombie photographer. They are just going to follow the crowd, right? They haven't learned. Zombie photographers are people that haven't learned how to solve problems. Literally, because anybody that is invested in the idea of creativity, anybody that's invested in wanting to do something, somebody earlier, Photo Mix Media asked me about it. How do you stand out from the crowd? Anybody that's invested in making something that's going to stand out, that's going to be different, that's going to be unique, they understand I've got to go solve a problem. So what you have to understand, guys, is this overpower the sun with the strobe thing and high-speed sync. These are convenience features. We did it years before there were strobes that were that bright. We did it years before there was high-speed sync. There's nothing wrong with high-speed sync, and there's nothing wrong with overpowering the sun, except when you're doing it just because, and except when you're doing it just to be lazy. It's boring. You know, and I can't do it here on YouTube because there's copyright laws, and believe me, people would love to sue me for it, but I would love to go through some of these Facebook groups about off-camera flashing out where picture after picture after picture after picture after picture after picture are clones of each other. I took my 24-centimeter octobox outside, had my buddy hold it on a pole, had another buddy come out with a video camera so that I could look really cool while I'm doing it, and I shot pictures of this hot chick, and I overpowered the sun, and I shot it f1.2, so I got lots of bokeh. Like, literally, you go into these groups, and it's picture after picture after picture after picture. And you know what the worst part is? One, they all look the same. Literally, they all look the same. Two, 90% of those pictures, and I know I'm going to get hate mail for this, but it's a fact. Go look yourself. 90% of those pictures, if you look at them for more than 10 seconds, you start to realize they actually suck. Sloppy hair, messy hair, horrible makeup, hot spots from the light being too close to the subject, awkward poses. My favorite, the hairband on the wrist. These are just lazy photographers. But they think it's cool because their favorite YouTuber does it. Come on. So, yeah, I mean, Michael, there's so many different ways to do it, but it really comes down to, why do you really want to do it? What are you really trying to accomplish? Because there's, you know, and everything else in life, what do we learn? We learn there's more than one way to solve a problem, right? Why in photography? Does everybody have to use the same way to solve a problem? Why? Why do we do that? I don't get it. I'm sorry, guys. Look, I know some of you probably think I'm like a complete jerk for saying these things. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to motivate you. Get off your lazy butts. Create something. Do something that's different and fun and exciting. That's how you get to the point where you're proud of your photography. Not doing the same old crap that everybody else does. Just saying, right? So, anyway, next question. Darklink 2004. What do you think I can do to help make my clients feel safe for their sessions being done in a public place? My apology if this question makes anyone uncomfortable. It's not my intention. Oh, I don't think you're making anybody uncomfortable with this question, Darklink. It's a very good question. And, you know, it's obviously, it's a question it's a question that is getting talked about a lot lately, okay, in a lot of kind of different ways. I'll actually go back to something I said earlier when I was talking about photographing heavy, overweight people. You start with treating them like human beings, right? And that means you start by showing respect. So if you're doing it in a public place, I'm going to assume that there's a couple elements to your question. Number one, and for those of you that may be tuning in late, Darklink is tuning in from El Paso, Texas. So unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the city of El Paso is having a really rough week, okay? So I'm going to try and approach this from two directions, Darklink. One, just from the standpoint of comfortable as in like, hey, is this guy like a jerk or a pervert or whatever? And two, from the more current climate question, because I don't really have a great answer for that one, I'm not going to lie. But as far as comfort with the photographer, you treat them like human beings. You treat them the way you would want to be treated. I always tell photographers, remember, if you're photographing people, it's a relationship game, right? It's about relationships. It's about establishing relationships with people. So put some effort into it. So, you know, if it's a guy who wants to go out with a girl, he's going to jump through freaking hoops to make that work, to get that date, to build that relationship, right? Well, obviously, this is not a romantic relationship we're talking about, but you have to put effort into it. So a simple thing to do, meet them before that shoot. I don't mean like an hour before. I mean a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week before. Tell them to bring a friend. Tell them to bring a spouse, boyfriend, doesn't matter. Buy them a cup of coffee at Starbucks. If you're cheap, buy it at Dunkin', doesn't matter. But buy them a cup of coffee, right? Oh, wait, you're in Texas. Buy them a soda, it's cooler. But the fact is, just sit down, chat, talk about the shoot. That way, when the time comes, they know you, they're more comfortable with you. And that way, you also can, you know, deal with the whole day with a lot less friction and a lot less nerves. Now, as far as, you know, being in a public place because something bad could happen in a public place, I don't have the answer, you know, for that, Dark Link, because certainly right now, today, it's going to be a very different experience in El Paso, Texas, than it is going to be here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Allentown, Pennsylvania, actually, from June 1 to today, and I've been away for a couple days, so I may have missed a couple, just saying. But in basically 2 months, just over 2 months, we've had over 27 people shot within 5 blocks of my studio. Yeah, I'm in a great neighborhood, truly. Now, I hate to make light of this, but it's statistically one of the safest places in the country to be shot, because out of those 27 people, there's only been 2 fatalities. So people here apparently can't aim very well. But the fact of the matter is, and it's really not something I should be joking about, but I use the joking to make myself feel a little bit more functional about the fact that I'm going to walk out of here in the dark to get to my car, and, you know, not the best of neighborhood. That's part of why the rent here is very reasonable. But the experience of somebody shooting in a public place here in Allentown, because around Allentown, there's tons and tons of beautiful parks, scenery, mountains, all that, and they're perfectly safe. Right now, in El Paso, I would hope, I don't know, but I would hope that it's every bit as safe as it was before last week. When you're reeling from what took place, obviously it's hard to imagine that. Obviously it's hard to feel that. You know, there's trauma involved. That is something, though, that I think the way you're going to get past that, Dark Link, if this is what you're concerned with, I think you're going to get past it with the same answer that I gave you for the first half. Put yourself in that person's shoes. If you personally are worried about going out to a public place, I would ask why. What are you concerned about? Is there another public place that you can pick that maybe you feel is safer? Do keep in mind when we talk about all these mass shootings and that kind of stuff, the people that do that, I don't care if they're mentally ill, I don't care if they're racist, I don't care what they are. Fact of the matter is they're usually looking for the most damage possible, right? You don't hear about mass shootings. It's called mass shootings because it's many people. They're not going to a place where they can knock off 1 or 2 people. They're just not. And I can't believe that's even a conversation that we have to have in today's world, but that's a fact. So I think if you are a little bit more selective about your public place, you then can potentially overcome any fears that a person has. But again, it's all about relationships. Putting in a little bit of extra effort. Those are going to be the key pieces. Okay. All right. Next up here, where am I at? Well, I got about 6 minutes yet. Let's see if I can get a couple more. Let's see. Nick, when did I first start hearing the term overpower the sun, which is really balancing the foreground and background lighting? No, it's not always balancing. I mean, well, okay, sorry, Nick. It is balance, right? But no, I mean, frequently what people are doing is actually making the subject about a stop brighter than the background, or even 2 stops brighter. But yeah, I mean, so you and I are kind of mincing techniques slightly. The concept of overpowering the sun has been around since the 80s. It just has, right? Because back then, what you would do, you know, keep in mind, we're talking like in 70s, excuse me, 60s for that matter, fill flash. Fill flash is where it all started. And people got bored with fill flash because fill flash, it had a look to it, right? It had a look to it that was like, you know. So what do people do? Creative people, they explore, they look for different things. And then when they realize that, hey, you know, we could put a person in the shade with a sunny area behind them, but we light them, it looks like they're in a studio, but they're outside and it's kind of really cool and it makes a different juxtaposition. And then in the early 2000s, strobes started to get a lot more powerful. And then that idea of overpowering the sun became really cool, where you were stopped at 2 stops, even 3 stops brighter than what the sun was. And, you know, now the zombies, yes, the zombies live anywhere from, you know, like kind of balancing to 2 stops under, but it's all the same stuff, right? I mean, they're just, it's not about creating interesting work. It's about just doing a boring picture. I'm arguing, hey, let's be a little bit more creative, right? I mean, one of the questions that I started my conversation with tonight, somebody asked me, how do you stand out? Well, you don't do it by being a zombie photographer. You just don't, right? I don't care how good your marketing is. So that's kind of my take on that. But yeah, you can say balance. I say overpower. It's essentially the same thing, okay? Let's see. Metamurph. Safe in public, on the other hand, if you're worried that the photographer is a creep, it helps to overcome, but also may be to, oh, well, hey, look, the changing booth thing, Metamurph, let's be really clear, guys. I have this experience several times a year, and it freaks me out when it happens. I will work with a model, and I've had it happen when I'm traveling and doing stuff with Olympus. I've had it happen in my own studio. I've had it happen in my basement studio in my house. I'll work with a model for the very first time, and she is a model that I maybe met via Instagram, or I met her via Model Mayhem, and she's been doing the amateur modeling thing for a while, and she comes in, and I point out, there's the dressing room, right? So anytime I'm here, there's a dressing room that's over here. You'll see it when the video comes out. You know that I had a dressing room in my home studio. When I'm doing the demos for Olympus, we're always either at a hotel or at a camera store. There's always bathrooms for changing, or a convention center. There's always a place to change. And yet, it'll come time to change, and I'll tell the girl, go ahead and change. And I always point to where the changing room is. And the girl literally will find the nearest counter and start to strip. It's like, no, stop. And I make it really clear. It's like, I'm a guy. If you want me to be a pervert, I would enjoy seeing that. But we're working today. This is professional. Go there. And then I'll ask them when they come out, and I am terse about it. When they come out, I'll say to them, it's like, so the fact that you just did that, I have a feeling that you've had people tell you in the past, like, hey, hustle up, you've got to be comfortable with getting changed anywhere, whatever. And they're like, well, yeah, like all the time. And I'm like, no. At fashion shows in New York, are there scenarios where the girls are made to like change behind clothing racks and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, it happens. But even then, there's a certain amount of modesty provided, okay? But the fact of the matter is, does the girl need to change in public? No. And as a photographer, even let's say you're going out in the woods, right? Like, should you be expecting the girl to just kind of go off and hide in the trees? No, man. Would you want to do that? No. You should be providing, proper accommodations to do it, period. You just should. There's no excuse for not doing that, okay? All right, let's see, scrolling back up here. I think I saw a couple of others. Let's see. Sidesh, please suggest marketing or business books that you like. I'll be honest with you, I don't read a lot of them. But what I will tell you, there's one gentleman, I want to look up the name of the book. This came up in a conversation yesterday, and I forgot the name of his specific book that I'm after. So there it is. So I will type this in the chat window, gang. If you want to read the definitive book on how to sell, and this is sales, right? This is the book you're going to read. It is by a gentleman named, I'm putting it in the chat window. His name is Zig Ziglar. He is no longer with us, unfortunately. He was, by trade, a car salesman. And he became an author, and he became a motivational speaker. I read this book of his. It's his very first book, See You at the Top. I read this book when I was in my 20s. And it was life-altering in terms of my understanding of marketing. And I want to be really clear before you rush out and buy it, folks. if you're one of those people that needs a step 1, step 2, step 3, don't buy this book. It's just a book of stories. But I guarantee you it will change your thought process and the way you approach understanding marketing. So, all right, one last thing. So that's going to be it for questions. I want to show you guys one thing. I mentioned this earlier, and I just realized it's sitting here on my screen, and I forgot to show it to you. So for those of you that are trying to make money, have your own website, and have ever looked at Google Analytics. And if you don't know what Google Analytics is, and you have your own money, then, I mean your own website, sorry, have your own website, then duh, you need to look into that. So you can Google it, Google, Google Analytics, right? But Google Analytics, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of overwhelming to look at, right? It just is. So I stumbled across this program about a week ago, and I signed up, I started using it, and it is awesome. It's a program called Stat Counter. It's about $90 a year. It's not cheap, but again, like the description that I gave Adam earlier, if you're trying to make money and you can't make $90 a year, that's kind of problematic. There's a link for it. And by the way, gang, I want to be really clear. I'm not getting paid to tell you this, okay? I found out about this. It's amazing. Wow, that was fun. I'm back. Literally, everything just died. Don't you love it when the system just like reboots really crazy like that? So you all thought my time ran out and it just cut off, right? So anyway, these folks at Stat Counter, what they did is they took Google Analytics. I at least want to share this with you. I know I'm going to run over a few minutes, but I want to show you this. They took the Google Analytics program and basically simplified it big time. So the way that it works, and I'm going to, I got to log in here. I'm going to talk more about this as time, and am I going to be able to log in? I'm not. Okay. I will show you guys a demo next week, but I'll give you the examples here. What they're going to tell you in fact, here, I can go through this page. They're going to help you get a much better understanding of where your traffic's coming from, how long people are staying on your website, all the stuff that Google Analytics does, but they do it in an interface that is much, much, much easier to understand, okay? So since the feed crashed, since the end of the night, and I know a lot of people left, I really do want to make sure that you guys get to see this, and I want to be able to kind of break it down for you. So next week, I'll lead the show with Stat Counter. In the meantime, you guys should go check it out. They do have a free trial. That's what I did first, before I decided to jump in. But I would encourage you to go check it out. And we'll come back next week. We'll dig into it. We'll show you, what it's all about. But that being said, I ran over time. So we're 4 minutes over. So that means you guys need to get out and do a whole lot of shooting this week, right? So as always, gang, thank you very, very much for spending the evening with me. Great discussion tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week. Please remember these.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.